Hello gamers, Tom Seidner.
Nick Jones here with Titan Games.
And today we're going to talk about some new stuff that came out this week. And the first thing we're going to talk about are some beautiful miniatures by WizKids. This is their pre-primed miniature series. They're for Dungeons & Dragons and for Pathfinders. And they're pre-primed with Vallejo Prime. They're also really cool. They have some clear bits on them that you can use like a wash or a stain on and get a really cool transparent look. I'm going to let Nick tell you a little more about them.
Sure. One of the beautiful things of them is they are pre-primed, so you don't need to worry about priming them. They're all ready to go. You can just pull them out of the box and start painting right away. They look fantastic. This is the second release that they've done. The first release had some really interesting player characters as well as some interesting monsters. This time they introduced a Minotaur that Tom was just holding with a huge flail on it, which is awesome. And there's also some really cool bugbears, including a female bugbear that looks just hilarious, as well as more really fantastic player characters such as human druids. There's a dwarf fighter that's really cool, and a couple of other dwarf clerics and some other things as well. But they're all really cool, great sculpts, look fantastic.
The miniatures come in the package. They're unmounted. They do have a little bit of kind of a
small
base, but then they also have their unique base for the size of the figure, and they're not mounted on those, so you have the chance to paint the figure before you put it on the base. Very, very nice figures. They look really good. How much, just average, how much do these run for?
So each box at our store costs $3.99. So you're getting two really well-made figs for a reasonable price that's just ready to paint.
Yeah, that's impressive because I'm a Malifaux player and you don't get figures like this for $3.99.
That's not a thing, yeah.
That's not a thing, so yes, very nice. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the expansion for Sheriff of Nottingham. So those of you who are fans of Sheriff of Nottingham, now you have a way to play the game a little differently, and Nick's going to tell you how.
Sure. So Sheriff of Nottingham Merry Men is it's one of those like 4 expansions in one box kind of setups. I'm a huge fan of Sheriff. I know Tom's enjoyed it as well as a number of other people. So there's, like I said, 4 different expansions. The first is probably the most important one. It adds in a 6th player, so you can now play with up to 6 people. There's also a new deputy system where instead of having just one sheriff, you're going to have 2 deputies. That there's some interesting dynamics there in how bribes are accepted or not accepted as well. There's also an option for a black market you can play where you gain extra points by getting certain goods into town and are rewarded for that. There's also a series of Merry Men cards that give you additional bonuses as you play. So the nice thing is you can play with as many or as few of those expansions as you want, but they're all right here in one box for you.
Yeah, adding the other player for me is always a bonus because my game group's fairly big, and a lot of games that have 4 or 5 players don't catch the table very much, but adding another player is always nice. And Sheriff of Nottingham, I'm sure they give you a new bag with it for the next player. So,
and the new character board is actually a nun. She's very interesting. Looks really funny. So it's a lot of fun right there.
You gotta trust her, right?
Yeah, of course. She's totally trustworthy. She's not bringing things into town for anybody.
That's right. Okay, the last one is one that's really popular. At Gen Con, it sold out like within the first few hours of the first day, and that's Space Cowboys City of Splendor expansions, because it is 4 different expansions in the box. You don't add all of them at one time. It's you add one or the other.
You can do all of them at once, just like the Merry Men box. You can do as many or as few as you want, but it adds some really interesting things. First of all, the cities, which essentially is an alternate end-of-game trigger, where rather than having a specific point total that you're getting to, as soon as somebody buys one of these cities, that triggers the end of game. You finish the round, and whoever bought cities is then scored to see who wins, or if you're the only person that bought a city, you win.
You place these out instead of the nobles in the game, so you don't use the nobles when you use the cities in the game.
Right. If you want to continue using the nobles, you can still use the other 3 expansions and just not use that end of game trigger. But I'm kind of curious to try them both out and just see what happens if you can run nobles and cities all together.
Yeah, that would be very crazy. The next one is the Orient. The Orient adds some more cars, and tell them a little bit about the Orient.
So the Orient actually adds on to the tableau of available purchase cards. So it's not replacing cards from the base game. It's actually adding more options that can be purchased by anybody at one time. And they're similar. I believe some of them have higher point values, so they're a little bit more worthwhile in exchange for you going to faraway lands and purchasing those locations.
The next one is trading posts.
Yeah.
And you use this board here for trading posts. I'm going to let Nick tell you a little bit about trading posts.
Sure. So the trading posts are interesting. They essentially give you some additional bonuses as you're playing, allowing you to trade one color for another at a discounted rate, different things like that, to help you speed up the game and get to those bigger buys earlier.
And then the last one are the
Strongholds.
Strongholds, yes. And these are the beautiful little plastic bits that you get with the game. So
the sculpts look really good, and it's another way to kind of reserve cards as you're playing as well, so that you can purchase them later. There's some interesting mechanics in, if you get 3 of them onto a particular place, you can actually get 2 buys in a single turn, which could be helpful. But it keeps it interesting and a little bit of a fresh reboot on Splendor, which is one of our most popular sellers as well.
yeah, we play Splendor all the time in my game group, but it does get to the point where people are like, no, we're not playing Splendor anymore. So this is nice. You can change up the game. You can throw one of these in. You can throw a couple of them in. You know, change up the game however you want and just make it back to the table with Splendor and just keep it fresh a little bit. So that's it for this week. We'll see you guys next week, and until we see you again, happy gaming.
See you.
This video was provided by The Lonely Gamer. To see more of our news, reviews, and videos, please visit us at lonelytabletopgamer.com.